Welcome back to Bless Your Heart, I'm Talking. This is your host, Zeta, and I got another fun-filled episode for you. I just got back from San Saba, which is in Central Texas, and that's kind of what this episode is going to be about, because it was kind of an unexpected weekend, and I had some really great conversations, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about those conversations. This weekend it's dove season in Texas, for those of you that are unaware of the hunting schedule in all the states. And my significant other is a massive hunter. He loves to hunt. Oddly enough, though, dove is not really his thing. He just thinks it's a lot of work for a little bit of meat. So he'll occasionally dove hunt, but he's not like crazy about dove hunting. But what dove season means for him is that means we're down to the wire. It's like he's Santa Claus and Christmas is about to be here because it's about to be deer season. And so we are going to San Saba and he is prepping for deer season. And so we headed down there last weekend so he could do whatever the hell it is he does. He's filling feeders and I don't know. He's doing stuff. And I did spend the day with him last weekend. But this weekend we went back and my plan was to stay in the cabin, which I'm renaming, y'all. I'm going to come back to this, but it's another story. Anyways, the cabin. Which is my family property. And so we're going to, I'm going to stay there all day by myself. And he's just going to take the truck and I'm just going to find things to do, which I wanted to restain the floor of the sunroom because it had gotten scratched when we moved a refrigerator out. And I couldn't stand looking at the scratch. I love that place so much. So my goal this weekend was to restain that floor. And so I thought it would take me a long time, y'all. I really did. But I had prepped it a little bit already. So it didn't take me any time at all. So I spent most of the day alone. So the night before I'd called my sister India. I have a half sister, which my sisters are like my full sibling. I don't do the half thing, but to explain who they are, my sisters are not sisters with each other. I have two sisters that are half sisters, one belonging to my mom, one belonging to my dad. And so they are the same age and they are very close to each other because they're both close to me and they've known each other their whole lives. And so it's pretty cool that we can all hang out and I'm the only one that's really sisters with everybody in the room, but they might as well be sisters, And so the last minute, I was like, hey, you should come and join me. She lives in Austin. It's like an hour and a half away from the cabin. I was like, you should come and hang out with me at the cabin. And so she was like, yeah, I'll be there. So then I called my other sister. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be at the cabin. You should come hang out with me. And she was like, oh, I'm not feeling good. I don't know that I should make it. I don't want to get anyone sick. I was like, cool. Didn't stay home. And so then I called my sister-in-law, Bonnie, and I was like, you should come. And so she comes over. And so we ended up having a sister day on Saturday afternoon and Saturday night. And I had such a great visit with them. And part of the sister weekend, we were discussing, really after Bonnie left, we were discussing my sister India and I kind of, what's catching up on each other's lives. She just got back from Europe. She just had a hip replacement. She's younger than me, but she didn't have the best hip. So she went to Europe right before she went and got the hip replacement. And so she's telling me all about her trip and how, unfortunately, she was in a lot of pain the whole trip, but she still had an amazing time and just, tell me about it. So we're catching up and we're just talking about things in general. And one of the things that we're talking about is that we have a brother out there. So my stepmom had a son when she was in high school. And we never knew about him until we were adults. And in fact, we didn't know about him until 10 years ago when my stepmom passed away. And my stepmom was my stepmom for 41 years. And she died when I was 42. So if that tells you something, or no, 41. I was 41. She married my dad when I was about 6 months old. My parents were separated before I was even born. And so it wasn't like some kind of drama thing. I loved my stepmom. She was I'm so glad my dad met and married her, and just really adored her. And so the fact that I did not know she had a child that was older than me and older than my brothers all, and is shocking to me. And so whenever she had two children with my dad. So I have a little brother and sister that are my dad and her. We've known since she passed away, and they have put out feelers trying to find him. And I can't really do anything because I'm not biologically his sibling. And my dad tried, and he can't because even though he was married to Cindy, he's not biologically related to the kid. And by kid, he's in his 50s, y'all. And so we've tried to find him, and we have not had any luck. We're not real big on doing the whole DNA testing. We don't really like throwing that stuff out there. So we're trying to find it the other avenues. So like we have contacted the Edna Gladney Center because that's where she gave birth. And she we don't know what to do. We want to find him. And so that we were kind of talking about that, over the weekend, like what could we do to find it? And so she asked me to put it out there and ask if any of the listeners are sleuth finders and like to do that. If you're up to the challenge, I'll send you the information and see if you can't find our brother. So he did find my stepmom, oddly enough, when I was living with her. So when I got divorced from my ex-husband, I lived with my dad and my stepmom for about, 4 months, 5 months. And during that time, apparently, and I didn't know this till after she passed away, and this is, 15, no, longer than that, 16, 17 years ago. And whenever I was living there, she got a letter in the mail from him. Her son had found her, and she never answered him back. And then she threw it away, and she didn't want anyone to know about it. I think she was ashamed. And so she threw it away, and my dad pulled it out of the trash and he hid it because he thought she would change her mind. And he thought that Kyle and India might someday want to know. So a few years later, apparently she found it, and she was very mad at Dad, and she destroyed it herself. So she did not wish to go down that path, and I think the biggest reason is she was just afraid to tell us. The other thing with it was, and this was part of what I wanted to talk about, is that I absolutely loved her family. My step-grandparents on both sides, I had really good step-grandparents on my mom's husband, my sister's dad's family, and then I had really good step family on my stepmom's side, and they treated me wonderfully, and they're just wonderful people. But there was a strain between them and my stepmom that I didn't see between their other daughter and them. And I mean, it was hard to explain. It looked, I guess, a little bit like favoritism, but it wasn't necessarily that, because you could tell the love was there and all that. It was just like a strain. And, my sister and I are talking about it, and we're like, this is what the strain was. They were, good Southern Baptist, from, Texas, and just old school and kind people, but, very, very old school and from very well-to-do families that, this was a problem. And so they were just so embarrassed by the whole situation that I just think it made her shameful, more shameful than it needed to be. And the fact that she never told my sister or I can understand why she might not have told her son, because I don't know, it's just different to talk to your son about certain things. But especially me, because being the stepdaughter and being the oldest girl, I got the benefit of, she was only like 21 when she became my stepmom. So she was very young, and she was so cool. And she was cool. And she just was always dressed great. She was stunningly beautiful. She listened to all the cool music. She's the one that got me listening to NPR. She marched in Washington for women's rights. She just was like this bad bitch, man. And her and I would talk about everything. I would talk when I was single and I got divorced and I became single for the first time in my adult life, and I was actively dating and, making some bad choices. I would tell her about all of them, and she would laugh, and she would not ever judge, and she just was like my girlfriend. And considering that she had been in my life since I was 6 months old, for us to have that relationship up until she passed away, and so for her not to tell me is crazy to me. And so my sister and I were just really talking about that and how crazy it is that this guy's out there and we don't know him, and that, is he alive? Does he just not want to? Because at this point, I think he could have found us, because they gave all the information to the adoption agency and that he had contacted already, and said, and they weren't allowed to give us the information, but they can give him if we say, please give it to him. And he didn't have anything there for us to get, and, his information wise, but he was given our information, and I guess he didn't reach out, or at least we think he was. The lady never called back and stopped answering calls at the adoption agency. So we don't know. It's just a hard thing. But I've been seeing all this stuff on Facebook where people are like, help me find this person, and they're finding all these crazy people. So I could just feel like anything is possible. So I'm gonna get all the facts together and put it on there. But if there's someone in this group that is really good at that stuff, would be awesome. The other thing was, so this sister is not related to any of my family from San Saba. That's my mom's side. She is my dad's daughter. And so she has been out to San Saba many times, though, because Zola and I are both close to her. My brother was. And, my mom loved her. My mom loved my dad's kids. And so it wasn't uncommon to see my siblings intermingling with the other side of my family. And anyway, she comes out, but she had never been to my mom's grave, and I didn't know that. She had never been to the cemetery. And so I had told her, I was like, oh, yeah, let's go to the cemetery. I want you to go to mom's, whatever. She was, oh, yeah, I want to go. So we go. And we just nerd out on the history, because I have recently discovered the website Family Search, which is free, and you can look up a lot of this stuff on your genealogy, and it is insane, the information you can get. I've already talked about it a little bit on here, but I just keep finding more and more and more stuff. And so I'm telling her all about that. And I said, I got this new tablet. And I was like, let me take the tablet up there, and we can go to the cemetery, and I can show you pictures of these people and tell you about them, and tell you who's who's married to whose kids whose, And so that's what we did. We were just nerded out. Here we are last night at like 7:30 at night, walking through the cemetery with my tablet and a bottle of whiskey, because we were going to take a shot with my mom. And I'm showing her pictures of each person and explaining who's who and how, anything I know about them, because I know a lot of stories about them. And so we did that, and had the best time. And we were laughing, and what a great time. And we both laughed at how ridiculous it is that we were sitting in the middle of the cemetery having whiskey with my mom, who had no relation to my sister, and looking at a tablet at pictures of my dead relatives and telling their stories. And am I weird is this weird, or would y'all do that? If we both were like, what a great Saturday night we just had. And so I was like, that's so funny. And so we did that, and then we went back to the house. And the last poem that I put out, which was the cowboy poem about the story about the guy that was killed by the horse thieves. I wrote a poem that was the point of view of Little Miss Miller from that poem. And so I read my sister the poems, both of them. And then I was like, we are so funny. We're doing poetry and walking through graveyards. And I did plan to take her down to the river, but it got dark. So I had gone down to the river by myself earlier in the day, and it was just so serene. It's just so peaceful, y'all. It's just, I wish everybody had a spot to go to where you can just like escape the world. And I really do just absolutely escape the world when I go out there. And when Rick and I got there on Friday night, we got there pretty late. and it's deer season coming up pretty soon. But this was the first like real cold front, and it got down to like, I don't know, 69 at night. And for us this time of year, that is very cool. And on Saturday, it didn't get above like 73, which is insane. And so the deer were out, they were moving. And we got to the cabin, and we have a gate they have to unlock. And so I got out, and as soon as we pull up, before I even get out, we see there's a bunch of deer in the yard. And I mean, it's a very large yard. It's a few acres, so you can imagine. And at the length of a football field to get to where the deer were, I guess. And we're watching the deer, and I'm like, oh my God, it's a whole herd. I mean, I don't know how many there were, 13, 14. It was a herd. And most of them were does and babies. And there was one pretty big buck. And there was another buck that was small, but there was one obvious the main man. Okay. And I get out, and I sat there for a long time so we could watch them. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to unlock the gate, and they're going to run off because that's what they do. And so I open the truck door, and we're like a football length away, but that's a football field, but that's still too close for deer. They don't like that. And so I get out, and I go and unlock the gate, and they don't move. And they're watching me, but they don't take, and some of them like are laying down and don't even get up. It was so weird. And so then I open the gate, and I go push the gate open, and then he drives through, and they still are not taking off. And now the one or two that were sitting down are up, but they're not going anywhere. They were like walking, but they're walking like at a slow pace towards the fence. And so I was like, so weird. So then I get back in the truck again. I have to open the door, shut the door. They are not running. And I'm like, why are they not running? This is such weird behavior. And so we just keep driving up. And then a little armadillo pops up and starts heading towards us, like he's kind of charging us. And I'm like, what is this armadillo doing? And meanwhile, we're still driving towards them. And the deer aren't leaving. They're getting closer to the gate slowly, but they're not leaving. And I tell him, I said, I think that buck's hurt. Look at him; he's hardly moving. And we get closer and closer, and the armadillo turns. It acted like it was charging us, and then it turned around and it ran off, and it ran to the herd of deer. And then the deer, they went to the fence line like as if they were going to jump the fence, which normally they would have no problem doing. And then instead they just took a right, and they started just walking where they wouldn't have to jump a fence. And that's when we realized the buck really was hurt, and it was like limping. And all those deer were staying with it, like they were not gonna run off for their own safety. And Rick was like, that must have been a young buck, and that must have been its mom in there or something, because those deer would have run. I was like, that is the craziest thing. Like, they were protecting that buck, and they were surrounding him, which is another thing I've never seen. Usually the buck he is off in the tree, and I never have seen anything like this. And so as we pulled up, we stopped very close to them. I'm talking within 15 feet of them with our lights directly on them. It's pitch black. And they just stared at us and walked slowly away, limping away, and the damn armadillo left with them in the herd. I don't know what the hell was going on. I turned to Rick, and I was like, I want you to shine the light on the porch when I unlock the door. I'm a little scared. That was really weird. I don't know if I'd been by myself, I would have been scared to go in the house. I don't know why, like how that connects, but I was like, that was some weird shit I just saw. So I go in the house, everything else was fine. And the other story to this was, when Bonnie was over, because Bonnie came over and hung out with Indy and I for, I don't know, like 2 hours. And when Bonnie was over, she was telling us that she was telling me she does not, and we've discussed it before, she doesn't like me calling the cabin the cabin. So first off, pause this right now. Go get yourself a piece of paper, kind of a big piece of paper, like a notebook paper, and a pen, and bring it back over. You're going to need this so you can keep up. All right. So get that, pause it for a second, go get that, and come back. All right. Now you're back. So here, I'm going to have to explain our relationship to explain this story and why it's important. It is going to make us sound like some country ass people. Okay. Um, that's all I got to say about that. But I've tried to explain it on here before, but I've never really gone into detail, I don't think. It gets confusing. When you hear me talk about my sister-in-law, Bonnie, and then you hear me talk about her grandmother, her grandmother is my step-grandmother. So Bonnie is my sister-in-law and my cousin by marriage. So my grandfather, Richard, write that down. Okay. My grandfather, Richard, he married DJ, Dorothy, but we call her DJ. He married DJ. All right. So he's my grandfather. He is Bonnie's she is Bonnie's grandmother. All right. Bonnie's younger than me. So I grew up going to this house, and it's on my family property that's been in my family forever and ever and ever and ever. And I knew DJ as my step-grandmother my whole life. She was my step-grandmother since I was like 2 years old. And I've known her my whole life, loved her very much. She was very present in my life. My grandfather died when I was 11, and she did not pass away until 15 years ago. And she maintained a relationship with me and with my family until she passed away. I never met Bonnie. Even though she was my cousin, she was younger than us, and DJ would kind of do her own family things separate, and we would do our family things separate. Like we never intermingled. Their kids were already adults when they got married. Okay, so they didn't raise their kids together, so they didn't have sibling relationships. So I had only met Bonnie's dad maybe once, and that was my step uncle. But I think I met him maybe one time and maybe twice in passing. I don't even remember him. I'm just told I met him. And I did meet Bonnie. Apparently, she came to my wedding, and I have no memory of her being there. But she came with her grandmother. Anyways, this is some redneck shit. So then my brother Zoll, that is also Richard's grandchild and Dorothy's step grandchild. And Zoll and Bonnie actually met 5 years ago. 5 years. Oh, it's been longer than that. He's been dead 5 years. 10 years ago. When did they meet? Anyways, they met like in the last 10 years. Okay. And we met at a family reunion. But she had never been to a family reunion because she wasn't raised with us. She came to it because she's best friends with one of our cousins who she was raised around. And so she was in her wedding as a bridesmaid, and she had the wedding at the family reunion. And so she was there for the wedding. So yeah, it just sounds real bad, like when you say it. But she is not biologically related to us. We were not raised knowing her. They met and then started dating and got married, and my mom would roll over in her grave. I swear I would tease all the time. But they were just perfect for each other, probably because they were almost related, and they have some of the same memories at the same places because I was raised in the cabin as that's my grandfather's house. Now, here's the funny thing. We called it Granddaddy's house when I was growing up. That was what we called it. And then he passed away. And then when he passed away, it became DJ's house. And so Bonnie refers to it as DJ's because that's her grandmother. Her grandmother, she went by DJ. She didn't call her grandma. And so she always called it DJ's because Richard died when she was a baby. So she doesn't really remember Richard. So her memory of the house is it just being her grandmother's. And so she calls it DJ's house. Well, DJ grew gourds, tons and tons of gourds, gourds, so like pumpkin looking thing, not pumpkin, squash looking things. So she would dry these gourds. She had this big gourd garden and all fancy, and out there at the cabin, this is where I'm talking about. And she would grow these gourds, and then she would dry them out, and then she would turn them into art. She would paint them, and it looked like Western art, or native art. And she would sell them at all these places. She was real artsy. And so when I would go there as an adult after Richard died, there would always be a bunch of gourds growing everywhere. And when Zoe was little and I took Zoe there, Zoe would call it the squash house because she thought the gourds were squash. And that's how she remembered the house because they were everywhere. So she called it the squash house, and she loved going to the squash house. And so that's what we called it. Well, then Zoe and Bonnie connect. Now the cabin has new memories, and it is different because Bonnie ends up being the owner of the cabin. So my grandfather's half went to his children. Dorothy, DJ, got her half, but got to live in the home until she passed away. All right. She passed away. And then whenever my mom and her siblings inherited their half, they sold their half to Bonnie so that it would stay in the family. And, no one else owned enough stake in it, I guess. So Bonnie keeps it as one of her homes. She owns a few homes. She keeps this one just because she loves it, because she associates it with her grandmother. And that's how I get the benefit of using the home, because she was married to my brother. My brother was my best friend. She inherited me as a sister when my brother died, and I take care of the home. I maintain it. I make sure it doesn't get rodents. I keep it clean. I do floors when floors get scratched. Whatever it needs that I can do, I'm going to do for it. When things break, we fix it. We've put a new pump in it. Just we maintain it, I guess, so that we can use it. Anyways, our memories of it are different. What we call it are different. So when I started bringing all my friends around it and bringing them for the cabin weekends, it became known as the cabin. And the reason it did is it kind of looks like a cabin. It's wood and rock, okay? And so for these girls from the city, it looks like a cabin to them. It is a cabin in a downplayed world. It is a beautiful home. It is not a little cabin on the creek that's run down like a little hunter's shack. It is a beautiful, beautiful custom home, but my grandfather built himself with his bare hands, and DJ designed herself. I had to get a drink of water. That was a lot. So it's a beautiful home. So whenever all my friends started calling it the cabin. I didn't name it that. They named it that. That's just what they started calling it, the cabin. So when I would refer to it, it became cabin talk, cabin. And so Bonnie doesn't like it. She does not like me calling it that. She's like, it's DJs. It's not just a cabin. It's so much more than a cabin, which I do agree with that. And so as we're hanging out on Saturday, I was like, okay, I can call it DJs. If you would rather me start calling it DJs, I can call it DJs. I said, but here's what's funny about that is that you call it DJs. I don't. We call it the squash farm. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah. So in all these years you were calling it DJs, we were calling it the squash farm or granddaddies. But I've never known it as DJs, even when it was DJs. So it's weird for me to call it DJs, just like it's weird for me to call it the cabin. I think of it as the squash farm. And she said, well, then let's call it the squash farm. I like that. And I was like, deal. So going forward, even though we no longer grow squash on said squash farm, we will be referring to the cabin as the squash farm because it makes Bonnie happy. And if it makes Bonnie happy, it makes me happy. So we're rebranding. Why not? Are we going to get a bad review for rebranding what we call the cabin? We'll see. Okay. Reviewer T _ gets very upset about some things, whatever their name is. He, she, they, though, anyways, so how funny is that? Just how we look at it so differently. She sees it as calling the cabin as an insult to it. And I'm like, that's so funny because I don't see it that way at all. I see it as, I want people to picture it for what it is. It's a very warm, comfortable, I don't know, cabin. It's where you want to go and sit in front of a fire. It's where you want to go and eat a warm stew in the winter. It's where you want to, open all the windows and have blue bonnets in a vase in the spring as grill. It's where you're going to hang out at the river all day and go inside, just eat some, watermelon. And it's where you sit on the porch and you swap stories and songs. It is a lot more than a cabin, but to me, a cabin is just a very warm place. So, we look at things differently. So you're gonna hear a lot more Squash Farm. I told her it's gonna take me a while to break myself from calling it cabin and to move the listeners that direction, because that's what everybody knows it as. So I had a fantastic day. I did all that in like one day, and it was absolutely wonderful. I had absolutely the best conversations with my sister. I stayed up till like midnight, y'all. Can you believe? I stayed up till midnight. Like I couldn't. My sister was shocked. Rick got got back to the cabin from hunting because he was doing night hunting, and he got back at like 11 o'clock. He could not believe I was awake. I could not believe I was awake. And but if you have a sister or a sibling that you can spend time with, go spend time with them. Because that was something that we had talked about, my sister and I had talked about, was, Zola and I had all these memories, and there are certain parts of my life that I didn't live with anybody else but Zola. Zola's the only other person that experienced all these things I experienced as a child, because India and Kyle are my dad and Cindy's kids, and they only experienced that part of my life. And they were already out of that hippie world, like the real hippie world, by the time those two were born. So they knew the hippie friends, but they never lived in the hippie world. And whereas my sister, Tira is my mom's kid, and she is, she grew up over where I grew up with my mom, and she didn't experience the hippie world because mom, that was in her past, and so they didn't get that whole section of life that Zola and I got. So like we were talking about something that Zola and I had done, and I was like, I don't even have anyone to ask. I don't know if it's accurate. I don't know what happened. I can't even put all this together because I don't have anyone that's a reference point for me. Everybody's dead that I can ask, and so India has Kyle as her person. Kyle experienced the same childhood she did. They are extremely, extremely close. They talk nonstop. He lives in Oregon, and she's flying up there on next week to go visit him and his wife and kids. And, she's got that little partner in crime. And my sister Tira has always thought it sucked she didn't have a full sibling that had experienced all that. But her and I've been there her whole childhood. I was there, So we're very, very close. And it's just important you maintain those relationships and that you spend that time together as you get older too. And neither one of my sisters have kids, and it was by choice, both of them. And it was funny because India was like, isn't it great now that like you can just go? Like if you want to go, like this weekend was a sudden idea. She was like, you decided you want to come, so you just came. Like just 30 minutes later, you were in the car for the weekend, no worries, no kids, none of that. I was like, this is such a, menopause and all that bullshit can suck. But you know what? She's right. This is awesome. I'm really at a really good stage in life. I'm real thankful for where I am. And so I guess sometimes we got to count our blessings. And that's what this weekend was. It was a real big blessing of women talking and hanging out and great conversations with, my Bonnie. Now I told her, I was like, you're like my sister-in-law. You're all of those things. She was like, girl, I know. And then India and I just had such a great time. So I hope everybody gets to have those kinds of times. And I would like to invite all of y'all to please follow me on social media. And I am on Facebook under Zeta Owens. Also, I'm on Instagram under Z Mamacita, as well as Bless Your Heart, I'm Talking. If you could like it, share it, encourage people to listen to it. And hey, for my listeners that can come from Kid Nation, I don't really talk about the podcast on my podcast with Al, just because we are produced by networks, and I don't want to step on toes, talking about my own thing that I do. But if you could get the word out, I think that I'd get more listeners from there if they knew about it. So they have to kind of go looking for me to know about it. So if you could get the word out there to the other Kid Nation people, that would be a huge help for me. I would super appreciate it if you think they'd like it, I really appreciate any bit of help I can get. Also, if you want to go to Printify, I do have shirts. I have a lot of funny menopause shirts and Girls Weekend type shirts and some items that are from the podcast. And if you buy it and you post a picture, tag me in it, because every once in a while I'll see them pop up, but nobody tagged me in it. And I'm like, let me know. And I love seeing them. I wanted to give a shout out to, I was unprepared. Because I got the nicest, that's what made me think to tell everybody to let people from Kid Nation know. Because I've seen reviews on the other podcasts where people have said, I wish they'd have had their own podcast. And I can't put, I do have my own podcast. So I can't respond, but I do. And so that's why I thought maybe if we could get the word out. And so somebody had gone on and left me a review, and the review was saying exactly that. And so I just wanted to thank that person. And so that one said, deserve more than 5 stars. Zeta, I'm so glad I finally found your podcast. I was blessed to hear you with Al first, and I wanted to be your friend. And I can tell you're definitely a girl's girl, and I love that. And I love being able to listen to more about your personal life and the topics on Bless Your Heart. I can definitely relate to you and the things you talk about, and keep the greatness coming. And that is so sweet. And I just want to tell you, I really appreciate you taking the time. And that was Mama Crystal. And I really appreciate you when someone takes the time to leave a review. It's really sweet and makes me feel good. And it also makes me feel like you get what the podcast is about, because that is the way you described it is exactly the goal that I have with the podcast. And if you notice on this, if you listen to the ones that I did before I rebranded, because, I did have Kelly as a co-host, and I had to rebrand when we stopped recording together. And I had an intro and an outro. Oh, and I need to address that too. I had an intro and an outro, and I got rid of it. And the reason I got rid of it is I just felt like all these little sounds and fun things kind of took away from the authenticity of me talking. And I've thought about putting them back in there, or at least maybe an intro. And the reason I haven't is because I want to be more authentic. So that's kind of that's the goal, and that's why it's not there. But I did have somebody leave me a message that I couldn't answer on the Buzzsprout page. And I just wanted to, and months ago, this is months ago, right when Kelly and I took a hiatus and stopped recording. And they had said that they really wanted to know the song that we used as the intro. And I could not get that information to you because we didn't record again after you asked me. And then it was months. But the song is my friend Erica. My friend Erica that I talk about all the time, that's her. And Erica Lynn Lewis is her name. And if you look up Erica Lynn Lewis, the House is Haunted is the one that we used for the first few episodes. If you'll find that one, then you should be able to find her other songs. But the one we used for we changed from one song to the second song. The second song is unreleased, so that one's not out there. But the first, she wrote that for us. But the other one is released, and it's House is Haunted. And if you go check it out, Erica sings it. But that is Kelly is starring in that video, and she looks absolutely amazing. And Kelly sings background a lot for Erica, or used to. I don't know that she recorded recently. And so she's on some of these songs in background too. Kelly's an amazing singer as well. So that is Erica Lynn Lewis. And if you message me on somewhere that I can message you back, like Instagram or Facebook, I'll send you a link to make sure you get the right Erica Lynn, because there is another Erica Lynn Lewis out there. So I really appreciated that. And if anyone else has questions, you can send. I get questions all the time, and I usually will just respond in my inbox, y'all know. Sometimes I go and I mean to respond to them, and then I get sidetracked and forget to go back to it. So if that ever happens, you can ask again. That's literally why. But I appreciate all of y'all's support, and I will talk to y'all again next week, and we'll have some more stories and things to talk about. Until then, bless your heart.